And
Okay, do you know-
you have that option available to you if you wanted to attend in person at the courthouse in the assembly room. And I believe that that's where all the future meetings will be held moving forward. And also the option of WebEx as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So it's 3 o'clock. I just wanted to let everyone know I haven't seen Jacob Longenhan yet, our chair. But in presence, we do have Sarah Guild and Rick Seafelt, Alan Drebeck. And then on WebEx, we have Bill Conway, Arnie Schley, Dave Overbeck, and Marilyn Bend. And also on WebEx, we have Randy Feifrick. So we'll give it a couple of minutes. We're just waiting for the chair. Thank you.
Hi, Elaine. Chairman Legenhan is in the assembly room.
All right, thank you much. And then just for Jacob's sake, everybody is present either in person or on WebEx except for Eric Vogel. He will be absent for this meeting, but everybody else is attending one way or the other. So we're ready to move forward whenever he wants to. Thank you.
So are we slowly getting the band back together? Is that the plan here? Or they give it really roll out? Little by little. Little by little.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Hey, they got you generated economic development up in the Northwoods. That's all that matters.
This committee meeting in this room. So we're all kind of, actually ever, because we used to meet at the River Drive location. for
Al, that
these
would be much
meetings.
appreciated.
So,
we can get this thing
so you're
started.
coming in at the right time then.
Yeah. Would you like to sit right here?
We're all forming an habit of this.
Because otherwise you'll have to use the handle.
Yeah. Maybe that's better plan? I don't know. I'll run down to the end there. Nothing against you two.
I was gonna say, I promise I got it.
Social distance.
That's right, I forgot you said.
It's all good.
They should be the same. They all look the same. It just sits a little bit.
Well, let me pull it up to my phone now.
Care
because I
about
have it
it.
here regardless.
I was gonna say, so I'm not the only one that forgot that idea. I'm bring iPads now that we're in person.
I'll get used to it. Just make sure Cindy this one.
All right.
Does anybody else need a mic? I'll leave it in case somebody's.
Just bear with me a few more seconds here. This is it. This is it. Hey, that was right. Okay.
Before we get started, one second.
Is that gonna be like that for everybody to hear? Like what I mean is that when I speak, it's gonna be microphone for everybody in here? Yeah, you'll be able to hear it. Okay, that's gonna be weird. Okay.
All right. Before we get started, though, I did have a committee member, Marilyn Ben, contact me before the committee started asking about the call-in information. I just want to verify that the phone number and the call-in number that was included on the agenda, that was also posted on the notice, correct? Okay. Then we're good. All right, thank you everybody for waiting. Sorry I was a little bit late. So with that being said, I'd like to call the June 29th Marathon County Environmental Resources Committee meeting to order. Public comment. Do we have anybody signed up there? No, it looks like we had nobody signed up for public comment there. 3, approval of the June 1st, 2021 committee minutes. They were in your packets. I'd entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Supervisor Drabek.
Motion by Schley.
Arnie, was that a motion or a second?
Either or.
Second by
Whoever got it
Supervisor
there
Schley. Motion by Supervisor Drabek and second by Supervisor Schley to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4, operational functions required by state ordinance or resolution. A, public hearings, review, possible actions, and possible recommendations to the county board for its consideration. County zoning changes. 4A1, Cody Milanowski on behalf of Teresa Milanowski, rural residential, to CVRC Conservancy Recreation, Town of Elderon. Okay, so I would just remind everybody, those attending virtually, to please mute your phone if you aren't speaking, to eliminate any potential background noise. The Marathon County Environmental Resources Committee is now meeting in public hearing on the location, plan, specifications, and purpose of the following projects. Cody Milankowski, I apologize, on behalf of Teresa Milankowski, rural residential, to CVRC Conservancy Recreation, Town of Elderon. I'd like to introduce the members of the committee. I myself, Chair Jake Langenhahn, Vice Chair Sarah Guild. Any other members that might be on the line include Supervisor Bill Conway, Rick Seefeld, Randy Pfeifrick, Alan Drabek, Arnie Schley, Dave Overbeck, and Marilyn Bend, our Wisconsin Towns and Villages Association rep, and Eric Vogel, who's our FSA rep. Also present are Paul Daigle, our county conservationist, Lori Mimiskins, the CPZ director, Lane Loveland, the land resources manager, and Dominic Swangstu, our zoning administrator.
Mr. Chair? Sorry, Mr. Chair?
Oh, okay. I don't think you have to press anything.
Can you hear
do
it?
We have a new staff
Sorry,
member. and,
Jacob, can you hear me
Brooke
okay?
She's filled Patrick Beulah's former position, and he left this spring. And we're excited to have Brooke here. And I'll just let her give a little background, just 30-second elevator speech on where she's been, what she's going to do here.
So I'm a conservation specialist for CPZ, and I'm coming from Manitowoc County as a soil con. Prior to that, I was in grad school at UW-Madison, getting a degree in agroecology, and I'm happy to be here. Happy to get some conservation on the ground.
You said your name was Brooke? Oh, welcome, Brooke. We appreciate having you here. Lane, did you have something? I heard you talking in the background.
Yeah, I wanted to do a really good speech and introduce our new conservation technician or specialist, Brooke Bembenek. But got that taken care of, so we're good to go.
Appreciate the effort. Thank you. The establishment of the ERC is required by law for purposes of administration of county ordinances and land conservation programs. The committee must follow state laws and local ordinances as written. This committee cannot change or ignore any part of the ordinances or state laws, but must apply the laws as written. The purpose of the committee is to hear and decide on proposed ordinances and ordinance revisions, rezoning petitions, and provide direction on land conservation and planning programs. The ERC will give a full and fair hearing to any person applying for a rezone petition. A taped recording is being made of the meeting, which will assist with preparation of written hearing minutes. The committee is interested in hearing all pertinent comments and questions. Each hearing will be open, or will be open by reading the public notice and allowing staff to present a staff report, including evidence from any on-site inspection. The applicant and anyone wishing to testify will be sworn in and allowed to give testimony. Witnesses will be called in order of those first in favor, second opposed, and third as interested may appear. The committee may ask questions of the zoning staff and the applicant. It is necessary that we set a reasonable time limit on individual statements and on the overall length of the hearing. To promote orderly discussion, anyone wishing to present oral testimony or ask questions relating to the hearing should state your name and present your testimony or questions so it becomes part of the official record. We request you avoid repetition. Once the committee has all the necessary facts, the chairman will close the hearing, allowing no further testimony, and the committee will deliberate and decide in front of the public whether the applicant has met the standards in the ordinance. No additional testimony from the public is allowed during the deliberation. However, the committee may question staff for purposes of clarification. After a decision is made, the committee will proceed to the next hearing. Many of the decisions made by the committee are a recommendation to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, who will take up the matter at a future county board meeting. Please contact staff for more information regarding this county board process. The committee will now hear the application of 4A1 Cody Milenkowski on behalf of Teresa Milenkowski, rural residential to conservation, recreation, town of Elderon. We'll begin with our staff report. So we'll begin with Dom. Dom, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair. So as previously stated, this is a rezone petition by Cody Milenkowski on behalf of Teresa Milenkowski to rezone lands from rural residential to conservancy recreation in the town of Elderon. You'll see the location of the parcel in question is located just southwest of Highway 29 in the northern portion of the town. Moving down to the existing zoning district map, the adjacent parcels are zoned rural estate, shown in green or in orange, general agriculture, with a few residentially zoned parcels within close proximity. As stated, the area and existing parcel to be rezoned is approximately 3.9 acres in size. Existing land use map, the parcel proposed to be rezoned is shown as other agriculture in the town's comprehensive plan existing land use map. Whereas in the town's future land use map, the area proposed to be rezoned is also shown as other agriculture. The Farmland Preservation Plan, this area was designated as a farmland preservation area in the plan, yet the town does not participate in farmland preservation zoning. Therefore, there are no parcel zone farmland preservation in the town of Elderon. Significant parcel limitations or natural features. The area proposed to be rezoned has some DNR mapped wetlands and is partially covered by the shoreline overlay, and there are no mapped floodplain areas on the parcel. Now on the screen is an aerial photo of the existing parcel in question. And the second aerial here is just a zoomed out version of it. And as previously stated, it's located southwest of State Highway 29. Town recommendation. On June 9th, 2021, the Town of Elderon Town Board recommended approval to the Marathon County Environmental Resources Committee, and they did not have any additional comments or suggestions provided in their resolution. Moving down to the staff comments regarding ERC conclusions of law, CBZ staff rely on the towns to make these recommendations given the town board. Members and residents know their town and the true purpose and intent of the plan. Although the town's comprehensive plan referenced in the staff report was created in 2009, the land use maps are over 15 years old, and it's also important to note the town of Elderon is in the process of updating their comprehensive plan. And yet they had made their recommendation of approval based on their existing plan as well as looking at their future plan. And as indicated in the town resolution, the town board believes the rezone is consistent with the purpose and intent of that plan. No cropland will be converted as a result of the rezone. The need is related to essentially correcting an original zoning classification error. Currently, the current uses on site are not permitted in the current zoning district. The rezone will more closely align the existing uses on site with the purpose and intent of the zoning district, as well as the permitted and conditionally approved uses within the CVRC district. There is no anticipated burden on local government, and any Public facilities will be provided, and generally, as we're all aware here in these types of situations, it would be a private well and sanitary system. All federal, state, and local permits and approvals are required for any applicable development on site, and the town of Elderon has recommended approval of the rezoning question. Moving down to the CPZ staff recommendation. Based on the information provided above, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the town's recommendation, it appears the rezone meets all rezone criteria and standards for rezoning. Therefore, CPZ staff recommend that the Environmental Resources Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors. And that concludes the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Dom. Any other questions from the committee? All right, hearing none. Oh, sorry, Supervisor Guild.
There we go. Just because this is a somewhat, I guess, rare question going from rural residential to the CVRC, I'd just like to get a little bit more insight about what are the general uses for this classification, because when I was looking it doesn't look like there are immediately any other uses adjacent, although there's some in the larger scaled out area. But I'd just be curious to know what we're approving this space to be used for in general.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I guess I'll go back to, I guess, why this parcel is currently zoned rural residential. It appears that the sportsman club that has been taking place on site was there when the zoning district map was approved. And yet, based on the parcel size, we believe that it was just classified into a residential district. That's pretty common practice. But when it comes to the conservancy recreational use, essentially the sportsman club that's existing and there's no proposed changes to it, that is actually a conditional use permit in that district. There's only 3 districts that allow for that type of use. So we believe that this would be the most consistent with the proposed uses on site. So with the conservancy recreation, as the name states, I think we're getting a little bit of feedback. Marilyn Bend, you might want to mute. I think you're unmuted.
I think I am muted. I think I'm muted.
Nope. I think you'll have to mute.
I am muted.
All right, Marilyn, I just manually muted you. If you would like to speak, please just unmute. All right, sorry about that. So in regards to, there is a bunch of uses that are permitted or conditionally approved in this district, and as you're all aware, the rezone just opens it up for all of those uses. So there aren't any residential uses that are permitted, no commercial, no industrial. It's more strict associated with recreational uses and I guess conservancy uses. So it's pretty broad, but again, it doesn't allow for any commercial or residential uses in that district. And we believe based on the current uses on site and what they're looking to do on site, this would be the most appropriate district. I don't necessarily have the list of all of the permitted or conditionally approved uses, but yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yep.
Other questions? All right, hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Dom. All right, so anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone, we'd ask that you please unmute your phone and please state your name and address for the record. I guess I should clarify, anybody wishing to speak via WebEx or by phoning in, please unmute yourself, but anybody wishing to speak here in person, please identify yourself. I'll call one more time. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the request via WebEx or phoning in, please unmute yourself, or anybody here, please identify yourself at this time. Okay, anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone, please via WebEx or phone, unmute yourself and identify yourself at this time, or if you're here, please come forward and identify yourself. I'll call one more time.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Lane.
I apologize to interrupt. I just, Cody Milanowski has joined us. He's the applicant, and he has joined us via WebEx by phone. And Cody, I just want to make sure you get an opportunity to speak if you do want to speak today.
Yes, I guess.
Cody,
I like to thank
Cody, 1 second though, because you'd like to speak, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Cody Milanowski, 213-705 Lakefront Drive, Hatley, Wisconsin.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the, oh, sorry, I apologize. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to thank everybody for taking the time to put this on the agenda and listen. I would just, I guess I'm just looking for the rezone, so the club can continue to do what it's been doing for the last, I don't know how many years. I know that club was around when I was young, and my dad, everything shot there. And I guess I took that club over, and I'd just like to see it continue. And what we're trying to do there is promote for our youth organization too. We're trying to get programs to get them involved, introduce them into the sport as well, and the sport going, and basically just promote basically like gun safety and just get them excited and introduce them to the outdoors, and just keep the sport going, I guess, because it seems like it's a dying sport, and we got to get the young ones involved, and we're very committed to trying to do that. So I guess if there's any other questions anybody has for me, I guess I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Cody? All right, hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll finish up those wishing to speak against, but anybody that, I'll call this last time, anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone, please via WebEx or phone, unmute yourself, or please come forward at this time if you're here in person. All right, hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak as interested, please unmute yourself or come forward at this time. I'll call one more time after this. Anybody wishing to speak as interested, please unmute yourself at this time or come forward in person here. All right. Hearing that if there's no one else wishing to testify for this application, I am now declaring that the public hearing on Cody Milankowski on behalf of Teresa Milankowski, rural residential to Conservancy Recreation, Town of Elderon, is now closed. The committee will now deliberate on the application and apply the standards of the zoning ordinance. What is the pleasure of the committee?
This is Supervisor Pfeiffer.
Go ahead, Supervisor Pfeiffer.
I'd make a motion that we recommend approval of the rezoning request of Cody Milanowski on behalf of Teresa Milanowski from our rural residential to CVRC Conservancy Recreation in the town of Elderon, and accept the findings of fact as presented in the staff report.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second by Schley.
Motion by Pfeiffer, second by Schley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on. 4D, review and possible recommendations to County Board for its consideration. Town zoning changes pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 60.62 sub 3, none. Oh, I think we do have one. B1, Town of Wausau, amending the Code of Ordinances, creating section 17.08 definitions and section 17.6 or 17.46 sub 3 AE pertaining to conditional use special event venues.
Yeah, so I can take that one as well. So as I, excuse me, believe as we're all aware here, with these town zone towns, it's just based on statute, they have to go through and be approved by the county board, and based on Marathon County's processes, the ERC hears these types of rezones and text amendments. So it is before you today, but as we talk about with these other town rezones, this is essentially a petition to revise the zoning ordinance for a town zone town. But there's no, I guess I don't have any additional comments or questions, but if there are any concerns, we can always, address them and speak to the town of Wausau.
Thank you, Dom. Any questions? I believe a motion would be in order. Supervisor Guild.
All right. I will make a motion to approve the, that we recommend to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors the amending of the Code of Ordinances for the Town of Wausau, creating Section 17.08 and Section 17.46 sub 3 sub AE as pertaining to conditional use special event venues.
Okay, motion is made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Drabek. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And I apologize to the rest of the committee. I feel like a fish out of water here, being the first time I'm chairing a committee back in person, because on the one hand, I have to look at this side of the table to see my fellow committee members in person, but I'm also looking up at the screen. So I apologize if I sound a little disjointed here today. But thank you all. So, okay, for C, review and possible recommendations to the county board for its consideration, we have none. 4D, review and possible action. 4D1, CPZ, conversion of water resource technician from casual to full-time position, grant funded. Who do we have for this item?
Mr. Chair, Paul Daigle, I can get started on that. And Lori, our new director, and myself and Lance have been working on this over the last several months, actually probably 2 months for Lori, but this is in the back of our mind. This is a position we've had for roughly 8 years in the department, and it's always been what the county classifies as casual, but a limited term position with about 1,500 hours per year. It's been a professional position, and we depend on the work of this individual, but it's also been a rotating position because we become kind of a training ground. And it's always been our goal to try to find the funds to make this permanent. And we have a new young man in that position that's doing a great job, but we want to keep that person and moving forward, because we keep moving back when we retrain someone. But more importantly is, A, do we have the funds, and B, do we have this in our work plans and our land and water plan to support that dialogue and hopefully gain committee support and also move it on to Human Resources and Finance Committee. So in the packet, we have basically this conversion from the casual position to the full-time permanent position, and it is currently under current funding. There's a little bit of fees going in there from the non-metallic mining program. To move it to full-time, there's not a request for any additional fees or county revenues to move that to full-time under the budget section. So just keep that in mind as it moves through the various committees, and hopefully our goal is to get this to county board in August when they entertain these type of requests outside of the normal budget process. And Administrator Leonard did assure us that this would be considered because it's all new grant funds to move that into the from casual to full-time. And we've secured grant funding to do that within the department and we're pretty solid in that for 2 to 4 years, and that's like many of our conservation positions. About half of our staff are dependent, or about half of our programming is dependent on grants, and we're always looking for them and securing them and for staff positions. But the work that's going to be done is directly related to our strategic plan that I've outlined in there, and specifically in our land and water plan, this will be work that under goals 2.1, reducing ag runoff to surface water, and that's working in those cropland riparian areas where they're less than 35 feet wide. We would like to get them widened out to 35 feet, and if you remember that goal in the plan that you recently approved. And then goal 2.2 is work to implement the Wisconsin River and Upper Fox Wolf River total maximum daily load study. And under there is to develop and support a coalition of stakeholders to develop and implement action plans to reduce phosphorus loading from ag lands, working with community stakeholders to form at least 2 additional coalitions to enhance the adoption of planned goals. And this really, part of this is funded with a lake grant where we get the funds for this. And this would be starting those dialogues with the Lake Wausau Association, which is going to be very interesting with this mix of urban and rural, because we know the vast majority of runoff is coming from the Rib River that enters Lake Wausau. In general, the Wisconsin River is fairly clean, but then we have numerous municipalities that bound Lake Wausau, all with an interest in the water quality and what happens on Lake Wausau, and then a very active lake association. So we'd like to start engaging that group, similar to what you heard through the Oak Plain Partnership last summer when we toured the Marshfield Lake Research Station, and start building out that coalition as well to try to get everyone around the table that has a stake in water quality to build common ground and start moving those things as well. And the third thing is goal 2.3, and that's protect and enhance natural habitat areas along riparian corridors and wetlands. And one of our goals is first to get an inventory to see where we're at, and this individual would lead that, and we're really looking for this university project that the county's involved with. So this individual could work with the university students to get that inventory done for us, but it does take oversight. And then also installing those buffers, and that's really the outcome we want. So there's a goal of 25,000 feet of riparian buffers that we want to install. And he's currently working on quite a few demo projects and with individual lakeshore owners to meet some of those goals, but this would really broaden those out and keep things moving forward. And he works with our like Dominique and Robert on folks with shoreline zoning permits, and if they have to, let's just say building out their lot more than current code will allow, and they have an opportunity to do some mitigation practices. So this individual works to do enhancements so that they might more fully develop the shoreline. Or if perhaps they're under some type of enforcement activity, that individual can go to a private landscaper to get a plan, but they also can work with this individual to come back into compliance. So those are really the major things that are in here, and hopefully folks have read the proposal, and Lori and I can both take questions. I'll open it up to Lori if she has any comments as well.
I'll just add one thing just to reiterate what he's saying about the citizen engagement and the community involvement. I think by taking this position from casual to full-time, we can ensure that continuity with the public in that engagement. Like Paul was saying, at a casual position, it can be hard to keep that staff person in place and have that continuity with engaging with our public on these important measures. So.
Any questions from the committee for staff? My only question is that in regards to the grant, is that a new grant? And if it is, how stable is that funding going forth?
Yeah, there are some new grants we already have secured. There's additional ones we're going at. I've never been one to just rely on one grant source because they come and go. So we have a diverse funding stream for that, and we're pretty secure for 2 to 4 years, but like I said, that's really about as long as you get on any grant that's out there. So that's about as stable as we can get. You know, some of our staff that have been here 25 years are still reliant on part of their funding, you know, on those short-term grants, but we're always looking and trying to find them. So, but good question.
Sure. I myself, I have no issue with this particular position change. And I mean, I've never heard of that particular issue ever coming up in Marathon County, but it's always something that, you know, we always hear as county board members, you don't want to take one-time monies and put it into operating costs. So thank you for that. And as far as the training grounds thing that we sometimes have in some positions in Marathon County, obviously I believe that any effort that we can take to retain talent is ultimately going to improve the county organization. So with that being said, I guess my next question for the staff would be, are you looking for approval from the ERC for this position change and then for the position change to go to HR Finance? Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, we're looking for the committee to make a motion to approve it and then move it on to Human Resources and Finance for their action.
Okay. So motion to approve would be in order. What is the pleasure of the committee? Supervisor Guild.
Thank you. I will make a motion to recommend approval of the CPZ conversion of the water resources technician from a casual to a full-time grant-funded position and move that forward to the HR, Finance, and Property Committee for additional review.
Thank you. Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Pfeiffer seconds.
Second by Supervisor Pfeiffer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on. 5, educational presentations, outcome monitoring reports, and committee discussion. 5A, department updates, conservation planning and zoning, park rec and forestry, and solid waste. CPZ, 5A, 1 and 2, we have update on Fenwood Creek funding requests. I believe we'll go to Paul here.
Yeah, just to bring you up to speed, and Jacob was involved with this as well as Chair Gibbs, and we've been spending time over the last 3 to 4 weeks talking to a lot of our area legislators and educating them about the Fenwood Creek pilot program and trying to secure state funding to fund that in this budget cycle, and we know how those go. We were given assurance that it would be introduced on the floor once Joint Finance Committee brought that back to the floor of the Assembly and Senate, and that there would be a senator that would introduce it as well as someone from the Assembly. That is supposed to happen this week, so. But I'm also hearing rumblings that there might be no action taken on the floor for any amendments. So I don't know, you know, and perhaps some of you know more about the political end of that. But we'll wait and see, and hopefully by the end of the week we'll have an answer. But this is ongoing. We're seeking other avenues, knowing, you know, that this may or may not be funded by the state. So we're looking at federal grants and as well as additional state grants to try to move this pilot project forward.
Any questions from the committee? Okay, one thing I would just ask Paul is that if this funding source was not available for this particular project, based on staff's review of the information from the American Rescue Plan Act in regards to sewer and water infrastructure. In fact, I think under water, they say that you can use ARPA funds for non-point source pollution. Is there any opportunity to use those funds for this Fenwood Creek pilot project?
That's a good question, and we specifically found that yes, indeed, we can, and the Clean Water Act projects can be funded under those funds. And so there might be the possibility to either at the county or the state level to secure those funds for that. And in those regards, I did have about a half-hour long discussion with the lieutenant governor regarding those funds and the possibility of hooking on to that at the state level. And a lot of the goals of the fund would tie directly into their climate mitigation plan that they did last winter, and all the soil health practices that we've seen that build organic matter. When you build organic matter, you're building carbon, and we just need to build that common language and understanding. And he was very engaged, and we had the specific section that allowed those funds to be used for Clean Water Act projects. So that's another avenue that we are, possibly looking into and will pursue further. So.
Any other questions? Well, Paul, I truly appreciate your work on this. I know you've put a lot of time into it, and I appreciate you doing whatever's possible to try and see this thing come out, get off the ground. So thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments, we'll keep moving on here. We have 5A2, Chapter 22, floodplain revisions per DNR direction.
Yeah, I can take that one. So essentially, as the committee may be aware or remember from February and March, we brought the draft 22 shoreline, floodplain, and wetland ordinance to the committee for action. And during the time of posting online and having the actual public hearing, there was some recommended changes by the DNR to be incorporated in the ordinance. And as there had been staff transition with the DNR, as well as changes in interpretation of the model ordinance, we have come up with a new draft ordinance that we will be bringing to the committee on August 3rd. And essentially, this will only include the floodplain regulations. The DNR had given us direction that we need to incorporate our dam failure analysis as well as some other flood studies in the ordinance to essentially stay within the federal flood insurance program, but also be consistent with the new model ordinance that is being adopted by the state. So I just wanted to make the committee aware of that, and like I said, a lot of what is going to be proposed and incorporated in that ordinance is strictly to keep us within the flood insurance program, but also to keep us consistent with that model ordinance. So there's nothing, it's more of a formality to keep us all good moving forward. But I guess as it relates to that as well, this might fall under another category, but I also wanted to make the committee aware that on that August meeting, we will also be having, I believe it's 7 rezones. So it's going to be quite a bit. So that's something that I'll probably stress that prior to the meeting, just kind of read through, because I'll be going through those staff reports much faster than I normally do. But I guess I'll take questions on either of those topics.
Any questions for Dom at this time? Okay. Well, regardless, the information will be in your packet for that August 3rd meeting, and you can ask questions at that meeting. So thank you, Dom. All right, 6, policy issues discussion committee determination to the county board for its consideration. A, legislative and budget reports, current and future legislative initiatives, and items related to the 21-22 state budget, park rec, forestry, conservation planning and zoning, and solid waste. Well, Thursday is a pretty big day, so I don't know what do you guys got? Any other rumblings, Paul?
Parks is first on here. I don't know if Jamie's on, if she had anything, but I don't know if she logged in. I didn't see her, but anyways,
I don't see Jamie on the WebEx.
Okay. So from the conservation standpoint, the Joint Finance Committee, they're wrapping up deliberations from my understanding, and one of the highest county priorities was that additional staff funding for conservation staff. If you recall that, I believe Supervisor Robinson went in and testified that that was one of the top priorities of the county. And unfortunately, from what I've seen, they funded about half of the increase that was requested, and apparently that was supposed to be fairly bipartisan, that it would go up to the requested amount and that it would be a permanent increase. And they increased it about $2 million for the 2-year period, and then but they did not include the base. So every 2 years we can go back and battle for those additional funds. So I don't know if it's a win even, because if you get the money and then you hire someone for 2 years, and like you said earlier, you really don't want to put people on. So let's just say Marathon County got enough money for another staff position. What would we do for 2 years with that money? And by the time it reaches the county, we really have about a year and a half. So, so that was kind of mixed reviews when that message was received, because that was a disappointment, because I know Wisconsin Counties Association was really pushing for that avenue as well to get that base level of funding. And as you recall, when we've discussed this in the past, 20 years ago, we got nearly $20 million for conservation statewide, and it's under 10 million right now, and we're just trying to get back up to 13 million. So the state's investment really from both parties, because that really was slow erosion over that 20-year period. Investment in conservation has gone backwards, and with inflation, it's even less dollars. So to not have that included was quite a disappointment. I don't know, be any changes perhaps, but we're not anticipating any at this time. But other than that, I'm not aware of like any. From my understanding, they're taking a lot of the policy changes that sometimes are in state budget that it's not going to be loaded with that. From what I'm hearing, I don't know. We'll find out when it's released, I guess. But other than that, that's really the only piece of information I have.
Just a question for that, to that point, with a $2 million increase, we'll still be able to fund our current positions. The problem is that we have to keep going back and asking for that increase because it's not a standing increase, correct?
That's exactly right. And even with the increase, what's in state law says that all counties should receive funding for 100% from the state for the first position, 70% for the second, and 50% for the third and any subsequent positions. And right now, the state funds about 1.5 positions at the county level, which isn't nearly enough to do the work they ask us to do, along with what the county asks us to do. So we look for these piecemeal grants and things to try to keep staff employed and our goals moving forward and do the best we can. But that base level gives you a lot of assurance. But I guess you can look at there were no cuts. There is a slight increase for a 2-year period. So we'll do the best we can with those funds when we get them.
Okay, any other questions for Paul? Okay, well, thank you for the update, Paul. We'll see what happens there. Is Melissa or anybody from Solid Waste on? All right, Cindy's saying no. Dom's saying no. All right, I think that's an indication. Okay, well, yeah, July 1 is the due date. I say that, in quotations, when the budget is supposed to be completed. So I'm sure there will be a lot of news flowing out that day that'll impact our county. So we'll just stay tuned for what happens in the very near future here. Well, we can't be this far down on the agenda. There's no way. I don't believe this. All right. 7, next meeting date, August 3rd, 2021, 3 p.m., Assembly Room, future agenda items. Committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. As Dom had mentioned, there's the floodplain revisions that we'll be taking up, as well as the rezones that we have coming up that month. So we have, just in those 2 items, it sounds like we'll have plenty of work to do. So enjoy this meeting today and its briefness, because it sounds like we'll have a lot of work to do in the coming months here. Announcements, requests, correspondence. Anybody has anything? All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Who wants to make it? Motion by Supervisor Seefeld. Second by Supervisor Drabek. Any further discussion? Didn't think I'd hear any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.